Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle of worries that seems endless? Constant anxiety, thoughts that don't let up, and that weight that doesn't leave your chest. This is more common than we imagine, and many people face these silent battles every day. But what if I told you there's a way to find peace amidst it all? God offers incredible freedom for those who decide to place their anxieties in His hands. Throughout this video, we'll talk about how this surrender can transform your life. And it's not just a matter of words. It's a profound change that brings relief and allows you to live with serenity. I'll share practical steps, biblical teachings, and examples that demonstrate the power of trusting in God. This content is essential for anyone seeking to live without the anguish of anxiety. Stay with me until the end and discover how this freedom is possible. And if this message touches your heart, help the channel grow by sharing this content with others who also need to hear it. Subscribe, leave a like, and if you need help, write your prayer request in the comments. We will be praying for you. Anxiety is something that invades many people's lives, right? That feeling that something is out of control, that the worry doesn't leave your mind. This distress, which tightens the chest and steals sleep, ends up becoming a constant companion for many. But what if I told you there's a way to find peace amidst all this? God offers relief from anxiety, a peace that, when we accept it, fills the heart and allows us to breathe in tranquility. When we think of modern life, with so many demands and pressures, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. This need to always be on the move, always producing, only increases anxiety. And in this constant pursuit, we forget an essential truth. Trust in God is the key to calming the mind. He invites us to hand over our anxieties to Him and, through faith, to find tranquility in His presence. You may have heard that anxiety is associated with a lack of control. We want to predict everything, plan every detail, but deep down, we know we don't control the future. And that's exactly where God comes in. He asks us to trust in Him, even when we don't understand the way. By taking a step of faith and trusting in His guidance, we find the spiritual liberation we so desire, a relief for the soul. Imagine, for a moment, waking up with a calm mind, without that constant weight on your heart. This doesn't mean that problems will disappear, but that the way of facing them will be different. With God, we learn to live without anxiety, understanding that He is in control and that we can rest in Him. This is something we need to learn to seek daily. In the Bible, we are reminded that the peace of God is not like the peace the world offers. It is deep, rooted in His presence. By trusting our worries to Him, we make space for this peace to fill us. If you've never tried, how about starting with a simple prayer, asking Him to take your worries? It's a small step, but it brings significant change. Sometimes we seek quick, practical solutions, but we forget the power that exists in simply trusting. God offers more than immediate answers. He offers a life transformation. Through faith against worries, He helps us face each day with a lighter and more confident heart. How about experiencing this trust? Gradually, you will see how your life can transform. So, when worries arise, remember, there is a way out, a place of rest. God is always waiting to receive our anxieties and teach us to live in peace. It's not about having answers for everything, but about finding refuge in His hands. This path of surrender and trust leads you to the next step, learning how prayer can be your foundation of peace. The Bible teaches us that, instead of worrying, we should seek God in prayer. Philippians 4, 6, and 7 speaks exactly about this. Instead of feeding anxiety, we can find peace in God's presence. Think about how powerful it is to know that the solution is not in trying to solve everything alone, but in trusting and asking for divine help. God invites us to pray, to take every worry to Him, and the promise is clear. The peace He gives us is something the world can never offer. When we talk about prayer, many think of it as a formal practice, but it can be a sincere and simple conversation with God. Imagine coming to the end of a difficult day and sharing with Him everything that happened, as if He were a friend who listens attentively. This practice of releasing daily worries in prayer is, in fact, an act of trust in God. By doing so, you allow Him to take care of what is beyond your control, bringing relief to anxiety. In moments when anguish paralyzes you, Philippians 4, 6, and 7 is a reminder that we don't need to carry these weights alone. God offers peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that does not depend on the circumstances around us. When we put our trust in Him, we are able to face challenging situations with more serenity. Try to take this invitation to prayer seriously. Transform your moments of anxiety into dialogues with God. Prayer also helps us to keep our focus on what really matters. Instead of wasting time feeding thoughts of fear and insecurity, we redirect our attention to God. It's interesting how, when we pray, the mind calms and the heart finds rest. This simple act of faith, of entrusting anxieties to God, transforms the way we deal with daily difficulties. He offers us the chance to replace restlessness with peace. Many people are surprised to realize that, when they pray, they begin to see things more clearly. What once seemed frightening now appears more manageable. By bringing each concern before God, we not only find peace but also a new perspective. When we make prayer a habit, we learn to trust in God more and live without anxiety because we know He is in control. Imagine starting and ending each day with a prayer. Upon waking, you entrust the day to God. Upon sleeping, you hand over the challenges that arose. This cycle of constant surrender is liberating because it reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Prayer is our shield against worries. It strengthens us to keep moving forward. Thus, little by little, anxiety loses space, and peace becomes our companion. Therefore, when anxiety tries to dominate, remember that there is a safe refuge in prayer. Every worry, big or small, can be taken to God. Philippians shows us that peace is the result of sincere and constant surrender. And as we pray, we experience this peace, which opens the way for an even deeper understanding of God's care in our lives. Did you know that God invites us to leave our anxieties in His hands? This is a powerful call, an offer of peace for those who are overwhelmed. Imagine being able to hand over every worry, every doubt, every fear to the Creator. He does not judge us for feeling anxiety but calls us to trust and release everything into His hands. This surrender is an act of faith, a way of saying, "I trust in you, Lord, to guide my life." When we choose to trust in God, it is as if we place our burdens in a safe place. He is our relief from anxiety, always willing to listen, embrace, and calm us. So instead of fighting alone against worries, try placing everything before Him. Be honest in your prayers. Speak to Him as you would to a close friend. God wants you to hand over your anxieties, not to forget them but to trust that He takes care of them with love. Often, we hold on to our worries because we are afraid of losing sight of them, as if this would make us lose control. But the truth is that true control is in God's hands. Trusting in Him is like letting go of a weight that only we carry, allowing peace to replace anxiety. Try to remember this invitation whenever you feel the weight of worries increasing. God is there, waiting for you to trust in Him. If you want to experience a life without anxiety, start by taking small steps of faith. This can be done through a prayer upon waking, thanking for the new day and entrusting the challenges that will arise to Him. Or, at the end of the day, reflect on what worried you and hand these thoughts over to God. It's a practice that gradually becomes a habit, and trust in God grows. Sharing with God what afflicts us is, in itself, an act of spiritual liberation. It is acknowledging that we do not need to face everything alone. He sees us, knows our pains, and knows what we need. God offers us active peace, a sense that He is always present, even in situations that seem to have no way out. It is a relief to know that we don't need to have all the answers. This surrender to God is a journey, not a one-time event. Every day, we have the opportunity to renew our trust in Him, to reaffirm that we believe in His care. This does not mean that we will not have challenges, but that we will have the strength to face them differently. God is the firm rock on which we can lean, especially when circumstances try to destabilize us. So, at the end of the day, or in the midst of worries, remember that there is always an invitation from God for you to trust in Him. Entrusting anxieties to God is not about ignoring them, but about trusting that He carries them with us. And thus, we make room for His peace to strengthen us and lead us to the next step, where we find support in the community. Anxiety often makes us feel isolated, as if we are fighting alone against a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. But it's important to remember that God has given us a community so that we can share these burdens. In moments of distress, sharing our concerns with trusted people not only strengthens our faith, but also reminds us that we are part of something greater. By opening our hearts, we allow God to work through those around us. God encourages us to seek support, to find in others a source of comfort and prayer. This practice, besides bringing relief to anxiety, strengthens faith against worries. Often, a comforting word from someone who also knows God can make a big difference. By talking about what worries us, we realize that we are not alone in our struggles and that we can count on the support and prayers of our community. Remember when Jesus said that where 2 or 3 are gathered in His name, He would be there? This promise is an invitation to seek fellowship, especially in times of distress. Gathering with others to pray and share is a powerful way to feel God's presence and, at the same time, find strength to overcome anxiety. It's as if each prayer is a support chain that lifts and strengthens us. Fellowship helps us face challenges more lightly because we know we have someone to count on. Sometimes, all it takes is a conversation, an outpouring, for the weight to lessen and for us to see things more clearly. This exchange of experiences and prayers strengthens us and reminds us that we do not need to carry the difficulties alone. Spiritual liberation can also come from the simple act of opening up and sharing. It's interesting how, when supporting others, we also feel stronger. When we listen to someone going through a situation similar to ours, we realize that despite the difficulties, faith unites us. This exchange strengthens our trust in God and helps us face challenges more calmly, knowing that we are together in this journey. How about opening your heart to someone you trust today? Often, we think we need to solve everything alone, but God reminds us that He has placed people in our lives to help us. The community of faith is a blessing and a constant support, especially in times of difficulty. Seek someone to talk to, Allow others to pray for you, and feel how mutual support can be a relief to anxiety and a Christian motivation to keep moving forward. Therefore, do not isolate yourself. When anxiety wants to dominate, remember that God gave you a community to support and be supported. Share your concerns and see how God acts through the people around you. And, in realizing the strength of this fellowship, you will feel ready for the next step, which is to hand over these concerns to God with even more faith and trust. Entrusting our anxieties to God is an act of faith that requires courage. Often, we hold tightly to our worries because we believe we have to solve everything alone. But the Bible invites us to do differently. In 1 Peter 5:7, we read that we should cast our anxieties into God's hands because He cares for us. It's a powerful reminder that we don't need to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. God is by our side to sustain us. This act of surrender is deeper than it seems. It's easy to say we trust, but true trust in God requires us to leave control in His hands. This means that by entrusting our anxieties to Him, we accept that the path He chooses may be different from what we planned. This surrender frees us and makes room for divine peace to fill our hearts. It's a way of living without anxiety, focused on His presence. To experience this surrender, start with a simple exercise. When a worry arises, take it to God immediately. Don't let it grow and consume your thoughts. Talk to Him, tell Him exactly how you feel, and allow Him to guide you. This act of casting anxieties into God's hands becomes a habit, and gradually, your faith against worries grows. It's an exercise that transforms the heart. It's important to remember that God does not abandon us in the midst of difficulties. On the contrary, He desires that we share our afflictions with Him because He understands our limitations. When we hand over our anxieties, we are, in fact, assuming a posture of humility, acknowledging that we need His help. This is spiritual liberation because it takes away the weight of self-sufficiency and puts us in a position of rest and trust. The practice of trusting in God is something we can develop day by day. Upon waking, hand over the day to Him. Say sincerely that you trust His plans and are willing to follow the path He has set. This constant surrender strengthens our trust and helps us live more lightly, knowing that our worries are in the hands of the one who can really help us. This surrender, however, does not mean that God will solve everything instantly. Sometimes He allows us to face certain challenges so we can grow and learn. But the difference is in how we go through these moments. By entrusting our anxieties, we walk with more serenity and confidence because we know we are under God's care. This is the essence of a life without anxiety, the certainty that God is in control. So, in moments when you feel the weight of worries, remember this invitation. Hand everything over to God's hands. Trust that He will take care of you and that His peace will strengthen you. This is the initial step towards living a lighter life, where you feel safe in His hands. And this surrender leads us to understand, in the next step, the loving and constant care that God has for us. When we face anxieties and challenges, it's comforting to know that God cares for us constantly. The Bible reminds us repeatedly that He is a loving Father who cares about every detail of our lives. He doesn't just watch from afar. He is present, offering support and comfort. This certainty gives us confidence to face difficulties and seek relief from anxiety in the faith we have in God. We don't need to fear because He is always with us. It's wonderful to think that God offers us a peace that goes beyond what we can understand. When we trust in Him, we experience tranquility that does not depend on circumstances. We may be going through difficult times, but we still find serenity. This is the kind of peace that strengthens us and helps us live without anxiety because we know we are under God's care. He is our refuge in all situations. Have you ever stopped to think about how this peace manifests itself in daily life? Imagine being in the midst of a stressful situation and, instead of giving in to worry, remembering that God is by your side. This is what it means to trust in His protection. This active peace makes us walk with more confidence, knowing that, no matter how challenging the situation is, we are not alone. It's a constant reminder that He supports and guides us. In many moments, we try to solve everything on our own, but this only increases anxiety. When we entrust our worries to God, we open ourselves up for His peace to take over our mind and heart. This peace is like a shield that protects us from affliction. It's like an anchor that keeps us steady amidst storms. Trust in God does not mean an absence of problems, but the certainty that we have someone to count on. God cares for us with a love that is difficult to put into words. He knows our weaknesses and cares deeply about each one of them. This awareness helps us face difficult days more lightly, knowing that our God is always vigilant, always ready to help us. When we remember this divine care, our faith against worries grows because we understand that nothing is beyond His control. This peace that God offers is different from any tranquility the world can provide. It is deep, rooted in His presence and in His love for us. In moments of anguish, just stop and seek this peace, remembering that it is available to those who trust in God. By seeking this peace, we set aside fear and embrace the tranquility He offers, a priceless gift. So, in moments when fear tries to dominate, remember, God cares for you. He is attentive to every need, ready to strengthen and protect you. This peace is a divine gift and is within reach for all who wish to live without anxiety. And as you feel this peace, you will see that it guides us to the next step, where examples from the Bible show the power of trusting God in moments of difficulty. The Bible is full of examples of people who, in times of distress, found peace by turning to God. One of these examples is the story of Martha and Mary. While Martha was anxious with tasks, Mary chose to focus on Jesus' presence. This contrast teaches us that, amidst worries, we can choose to stop and seek the peace that only God offers. Focusing on God and not on worries is a path to experiencing relief from anxiety. Elijah also shows us God's care in moments of discouragement and exhaustion. After a long journey of challenges, he isolated himself and asked God to take him out of that situation. But God, in His goodness, did not leave him helpless. He sent him food and rest, showing that, even in times of greatest weakness, He is there to support us. Elijah's story reminds us that God understands our limitations and offers us the support we need. These examples teach us that trust in God is essential to overcome anxiety. Like Mary, we can learn to prioritize God's presence over the daily tasks that overwhelm us. And like Elijah, we can trust that He will always provide what we need, even when we feel at our limit. These biblical characters inspire us to keep our focus on God, knowing that He cares for us, even in the most difficult situations. When you feel overwhelmed, remember these examples. Think about how God acted in Martha, Mary, and Elijah's lives and how He wants to act in yours. If you are anxious, try seeking refuge in prayer, handing over your worries, and asking God to take care of each of them. These stories show that He is capable of transforming any situation, and by entrusting our anxieties, He grants us peace. The Bible gives us these examples to remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. Each of these characters faced challenges but found in God the strength necessary to continue. This certainty inspires us and motivates us to seek a life without anxiety, knowing that God sustains us. His presence is a constant source of relief and peace, even when everything around us seems unstable. These biblical examples remind us that, regardless of circumstances, God's peace is always within reach. Just as Mary chose to sit at Jesus' feet, we can choose to focus on God's presence instead of worries. This choice, even amid chaos, makes room for peace and tranquility to dwell in our hearts, pushing away anxieties. Therefore, when worries try to dominate, remember these examples and follow the same path of surrender and trust. God is always ready to receive and support you, just as He did with His servants in the past. And this trust leads us to the next step, where we reflect on the daily commitment to trust in Him and hand over our worries with faith. Trusting in God and entrusting our worries to Him is a daily commitment. Every day, we face situations that challenge us and try to steal our peace. And that's precisely why we need, every morning, to renew our trust in Him. This act of handing over anxieties to God is like watering a plant. The more we practice, the more our faith grows and strengthens. Constant practice brings us closer to a life without anxiety, filled with the peace that God offers us. This commitment starts with small steps. How about, upon waking, saying a prayer and trusting your day to God? Tell Him what your concerns are and ask for His guidance. It may seem simple, but this habit transforms the way we handle challenges. It's a way of aligning our thoughts and decisions with His will, trusting that He has the best for us. The daily Christian motivation is knowing that, by placing our lives in God's hands, He will guide us. Trust in God is something that builds over time and with experience. As we entrust our anxieties, we realize that He is faithful in taking care of every detail. Remember moments when you handed over a worry and saw how God took care of it. Bringing these moments to mind strengthens our faith against worries because it reminds us that He never fails. This is the path to experiencing true relief from anxiety. Living without anxiety is a goal that requires perseverance. Sometimes, throughout the day, our worries will try to come back and destabilize us. In these moments, pause and remember the commitment you made in the morning. Reaffirm your trust in God and allow Him to take care of your worries. Surrender is a constant decision, an exercise that strengthens our faith and helps us keep a calm heart. It's also important to reflect at the end of the day on how God was present. Thank Him for the small victories, for the moments when peace overcame fear. This moment of gratitude is essential to renew our trust in God and prepare us for a new day. The more we surrender, the more we experience the tranquility that comes from knowing He is in control of everything. This daily commitment is a path of transformation, a journey where God shapes and strengthens us. He teaches us to live more serenely, fully trusting in His love and care. Over time, what once caused anxiety becomes an opportunity to trust God even more. And this change is the foundation for a life without anxiety, a life where His peace becomes our constant reality. So, if you want to live more peacefully, make this commitment an essential part of your life. Dedicate moments to renew your faith, hand over your worries, and trust in God's care. By doing so, you are preparing to face each challenge with serenity. And now, with your heart prepared, let's dive into a journey where we surrender everything to God and experience the freedom that only He can give. Now that you know these teachings, how about starting to apply them? Daily, we can commit to handing our anxieties into God's hands, trusting in His care, and seeking the peace that only He offers. Think, what could you do differently today to live more peacefully? Faith is a constant exercise, and each step taken in trust in God leads us to a lighter, more peaceful life. If this content helped you in any way, leave a comment of thanks, share your experience, or leave your prayer request. We will pray for each of you. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue receiving messages of inspiration and learning.